So I want to address this video that I came across this morning and then commented on. And clearly there was some back and forth between me and the creator. So I'm going to play the video and let you guys see it. And then we'll talk about my response to it and my comment to her and a little bit of the back and forth. And then I'm going to give you my point of view on the entire situation.
I wasn't even going to make the video, but since the guy wanted to keep on with his nasty comments, I'm going to go ahead and make the video. And this is a public service announcement to all of the creeps lurking on my page, all of the keyboard warriors who think that they somehow know more about my life than I do. Just because you saw a Saturday morning special 25 years ago on addiction doesn't make you an expert. Just because you saw something on the news doesn't make you an expert. I live this shit. We live this shit every day of our lives. Some of us for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. And you think, the audacity of you to think that something you read in a book or saw on the TV screen somehow trumps my real world life experience. My 30-year life experience with this disease. Well, you are wrong. You are dead wrong.
All right, so now that you've seen the video, let's get into it. So I seen the video and I responded. And I responded by saying, so anyone who doesn't agree with you is a creep or a keyboard warrior. Your life and your view are absolute truth for everyone. Now, that was an honest question because that's the takeaway I took from watching the video. That if you comment or say anything that she doesn't agree with, you're a creep or a keyboard warrior. And if you haven't used drugs for 30 years, you have no opinion. You shouldn't say anything because you don't know what you're talking about. That's what I took from that video. Now, she may not have said that in those words, but in her replies to me, and I'll just read a couple of them. It's absurd to judge someone by their pathway to recovery. We don't do that expletive here, so you should probably keep scrolling. Now, clearly she's speaking about him and his comment that was on the top left corner of her video. And then she's speaking to me that I should just keep on scrolling. So that to me says you don't need to even say anything on this page. You don't have an opinion. Her second response was, the guy hasn't lived as an addict, but wants to make comments like he knows what he's talking about. And we don't do that here either. So clearly she's talking about the gentleman who made the comment. But I noticed that she keys in on, he hasn't lived as an addict. That's where I got my opinion that her view is anyone that hasn't lived like an addict, hasn't put a needle in their arm or took drugs for 30 years, doesn't have an opinion, shouldn't have an opinion because they just don't know. They don't know anything about addiction because they haven't lived it. That's her own words. Her next response was, yes, people who leave comments like these in an attempt to bully me will absolutely get a video response from me. Now, I didn't have a problem with that because whatever she responded to is another video that I didn't see the back and forth between them. So maybe the guy, besides what he had posted that she had up on the top left there comment, maybe the guy was being an a-hole. Maybe he was bullying her. I don't know. I didn't see that. But I know I wasn't bullying her. I was simply asking a question, and we'll address that here in a second. And her last was response, this is my page, and it is an addiction awareness page. So that's all we do here. We don't do these kinds of comments on my page. So that's her telling me that, hey, man, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to listen to you. I don't care about anything you have to say. You can just take your opinion. And she said probably 4 times, keep scrolling. Now, generally, I would just keep scrolling. But addiction happens to be a part of my life. How is it a part of my life? I've never done a drug. I have never done a drug in my entire life. Why? Because I got a brother who's an addict. That brother's been an addict since I was in the 5th grade. I have watched my entire life him destroy his life. And for her to sit there and say that people who haven't lived the addiction can't understand the disease is completely off base. And people should have opinions. Family members live through the addiction with the addict. They suffer along with the addict. In our case, it ended up the state taking the children and my wife and I adopting them and been raising them for the past 6-7 years. That was an end state to years, me spending over $60,000 of my own money, children's college funds I had put away, to try to help get my brother and his wife clean. And it didn't help. We tried throwing money at it. It didn't help. We tried support. It didn't help. We tried getting them into halfway out our substance abuse programs. It didn't help. Detox centers, you name it. Over 35 years, several people in my family have tried to help. Now I'm still the only one that has anything to do with him. Now this is just a part of my story on addiction. But in that video where she starts to, now if she would have tailored that video to him and kept it at him, I wouldn't have had anything to say. Nobody would have had anything to say. But when she diverts it from him and puts out a PSA to creeps and keyboard warriors, and then she goes on to define those creeps and keyboard warriors as people who haven't lived the addiction for 30 years. Now she's talking directly to me and anyone else who's ever lived through an addict, been a part of trying to help an addict recover or beat this disease. But our opinions don't matter because we haven't lived it. We don't know anything about addiction and shouldn't say anything because we haven't stuck a needle in our arm for 30 years. That's exactly what she's saying in this video. And I think it's wrong. Because mothers suffer, fathers suffer, brothers, sisters, children all suffer along with the addict. And I'll be damned if we're just going to sit there in silence because it doesn't make her feel good. She feels bullied because anybody has anything to say, disagrees with her in any way. Well, I'm sorry, but your viewpoint is your viewpoint. And it's your page, and that's fine. But when you start addressing people specifically, don't get mad when they respond. And especially when they respond and want some dialogue. You say you're addiction awareness, but yet there's no open dialogue. It's your opinion and that's it. Come on. That's not helping addiction. That's shutting down dialogue. That's all it's doing. Now, I don't know this lady. I'm sure she's had problems with addiction and the disease, as she calls it. Maybe that guy's a prick. But I know that I've been through addiction and I've never taken a drug. And I don't care if it's her page or anywhere else. I will give my viewpoint on addiction. It is what it is. You don't have to agree with it. But if you don't like people commenting on your page, shut down the comments. Don't leave it open for people to comment. Because that's what social media does. You post, people comment. People are going to comment on this. No, people aren't even going to agree with what I got to say. Oh, well, I'll never shut the comments off. Let's have an open discussion, open dialogue, no matter what the topic is. Now, this morning, I wasn't trying to attack you. I wasn't trying to make your day bad or bully you or anything else. But my question was sincere, because the way you came across on that video was that anyone who's never done drugs shouldn't comment because they don't know what they're talking about. They can't have an opinion on addiction because they have never done drugs. That's your viewpoint. And to me, that is absolutely asinine.